Welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. We're delighted and honored that you're here today once again to engage in this awesome conversation about first century Aramaic forgiveness. Today's Thursday, March the 27th. and it's awesome to be in this space with each of you. Hey, Susan. And of course, questions. We know that you push the call button. And then once the call button has been pushed, you've got a couple little questions you need to put a check mark beside, and that will light up the lower call button. There are two different call buttons on the app. And when you hit that lower call button, you will be connecting. I'll get a notification here, and then I'll cue you in. It takes a second or two to connect, and we'll be having a conversation. And I'm just honored and delighted for every conversation that we have as we work with these first century Aramaic tools of forgiveness. And we've had a couple of really um, good conversations about codependence, about the dynamics of the mind, and how the mind tends to get stuck in its dramas and its traumas. And of course, the whole body of work that we're about sharing with you is how to get the mind unstuck. Well, welcome, Peter. We've got Peter from Sweden today. So, Peter, I'm not sure if you know how to access the show if you want to tap in live, but if you hit the call button, there are a couple of little check boxes you need to fill in, and then it'll light up the call button lower. And then you click that, and we'll be having a conversation. So it's a delight that you're here. Hope things are well in Sweden. And so before I step into any particular topics, I'd like to just open the space for questions, thoughts. If anyone's out there in the phone queue with a question for us, please push that call button, or you can put your notes in the chat, in the comment section. And hopefully, if I get really involved in a conversation I'm having with someone, I might miss those comments for a few moments, but I will get back to them. And we'll give you every insight we have into every possible use of every tool that we've developed over the last 50 plus years. When I say that, it's kind of wild. 50 years, oh my goodness. But that's what we've been doing for the last half century. And we want to move forward in the awakening process. So you've got a question or thought for me. Push that call button. Otherwise, we'll step in and we'll look at the codependence process we've been talking about. This conversation has been going on for a while, and so if you go back into the archives, you'll see references to it, and we do have a caller. So, Miss Susan, welcome, young lady. How are you?
Hey, hi, Michael. Um,
Hey.
I have a question for the naturopath.
Okay.
um, I had a shingles shot yesterday, and I was telling Dr. Tim that I'm having a hard time just, flu symptoms. They'll go away after a while. But I read about side effects from getting a shingles shot, and on Google, it said that people 80 and over shouldn't get them. Well, I'm 80 and over. I'm almost 81, and I got one. And um, Dan Hangy wrote in and in the comments of Dr. Tim's and said, "Well, I shouldn't have gotten the shot." Uh, so anyway, I know the the issue of vaccinations or no vaccinations is a hot issue right now. But that particular one, do you have any thoughts about that?
It's not something I've looked at, and so no, I really don't.
Mm,
My take is the number one defense against everything is to have a good, strong immune system.
right.
And especially if people are, into the culture's way of eating and thinking, then I think that there are places where if one is nutritionally deficient,
Mm,
then that can be useful, helpful.
mm-hmm.
And, if you're experiencing some flu type symptoms, your body's adapting to what, it's saying there's an invader that's come in, and the
Yeah.
invader's there to protect you. And so I'd do a little bit of lemon water and cayenne pepper to just move through those symptoms
Mm-hmm.
and put the mind energy in that this is going to be your perfect protection and
All right.
support for
Mm-hmm.
staying healthy and free of that shingles
Yeah, it's odd. They say that
atrocity.
people who have had shingles are apt to get it more readily than people who haven't, and I have had it. So I think that's why my GP guy was saying I ought to have this. And I listen to people that I know are more educated than I am, but I'm listening to people on both sides. And so sometimes it's hard to make a choice. But
Yes.
yeah, the deal is done. So, right. And I'm already feeling better. And I did the lemon water. There's this new thing where it isn't just lemon water. You cut a lemon in very thin slices and boil it and leave it overnight. And in the morning, you strain out the lemon water. And it's got a lot more good stuff in it because you've actually brought the skin and the seeds into it too. Do you
I'd want
know
to be
about that?
making sure that I'm doing organic lemons if I'm going to do that,
Oh, that's a thought. I'll have to look.
because who knows what they spray on, if it's not organic, what kind of sprays are used if you're using the whole lemon, the rind and all.
That's a good point. I do wash them, but that doesn't
No.
take care of everything. You're right. Good point. Thank you, Michael. Yeah. Okay, well, that's the first question on here. So carry on, and I'll be listening.
All right, dear heart. Extending love in your direction. Appreciate you.
Thanks. Thanks. You too.
All righty. Take care. So once again, if you're out there in listener land, push that call button. Would love to hear your voice, Peter. Welcome, Melanie. It's Linda. So we're talking about the power person and remembering that the human mind. Oh, we've got another caller. Let's go to our caller and say hello. Miss Celinda, how are you, young lady?
I'm fine. You? Can you hear me all?
I'm doing well, thank you. Enjoying being back home. Did not have nearly enough time with my new grandson, but that's just the way it is for today.
And it's all okay, as Dr. Tim would say, right? The God response.
Yes.
I was fascinated with Susan's conversation, and I feel like I'm ice skating with Susan in the spiritual realm. And I wanted to offer a couple of I have about vaccinations or no vaccinations, and also about one quote because Susan was talking about um, how we keep getting caught in our negativities and we think they're all done and we get caught again, and her frustration with that. I know one, being a perfectionist myself, well, a recovering perfectionist myself,
There you go. Retired perfectionist.
retired and
That's it. Yeah.
my best
That's
to
the
stay
assignment.
retired. Anyway, the quote is from Paul Dennison, the founder of educational kinesiology.
Right.
And the quote has never left me all of these years because I studied about 40 years ago with them. Um, all finished learning is changed here.
Say it again.
All finished learning is changed behavior.
Is the word you're using the word finished as in complete?
Yes.
All finished learning is change behavior. That makes sense. I think that fits perfectly. Every bit of information that we engage with is stored holographically within our structures. And therefore, whenever that information is called into play, especially where a behavior is required by the stresses that we set up, then our behavior is going to shift and change according to what's stored in brain cells. And of course, if we educate ourselves in the direction of hostility and fear, then that behavior will tend to be a downgrade from what humans are capable of. And if we choose to engage in forgiving, removing those things that didn't never belonged, then we get to step to a whole different place, and physiology becomes more settled. If you think of just the state of your physiology as behavior, when love is the fuel that fires every cell, it's a whole different behavior game. It's a whole different sensation.
And it's
And
like you were saying, and like in EFT, where they talk about the tabletop or what you would call the base fear or emotion or belief system and goal, all of these legs are supporting that tabletop. And if we knock those legs off one at a time, and they're all different issues in my mind, they're not the same issue. All these legs are different issues. So it makes sense to me that if collapse, I collapse a certain issue, then what I bring to that particular issue is compassion and calmness and um, love and uh, what's the other one? Joy. All aspects of myself, my head, my heart, and my body, the father and child.
yeah, I
And
think when we realize that the number one goal is to live as a human being, not get what you want
right,
in the world,
right.
then everything turns around and we're fueled. I mean, literally fueled from a whole different place. And that's one of the
And I really
objectives of this
love
work.
Dr. Kim's perspective, and then your contrasting, and not contrasting like adversarial, but another twist of the spiritual kaleidoscope. And I just love all that because you're helping me understand quotes that I've held close to my heart for 40, 50, many years because I really am a quote junkie. And now
Right.
they're blossoming like, oh, these little seeds are coming to life for me.
The eyes to see and the ears to hear. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and I have
That
a, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say the quote you've heard me use before from the movie The Accountant. You can't read a book that you haven't written. And when you hear someone offering a quote, of course, you hear it through your brain cells and it has certain meaning. If you add to your store of information what was going on in their brain cells when they spoke the quote, then your mind's constructs around that quote are going to, as you say, blossom. You're going to a whole different game happens.
Yeah, and it's like honoring the ego as well, our basic personality ego, as well as our spiritual self with a capital S, but just recognizing who's the master and who's the servant,
Yeah,
who's
I think that many
expressing.
people look for, through the body and in the what people call the world, they're looking for experience And for me, the more correct place to come from is that the world, instead of being a place that's here to give us experiences, it's a place, this body mind unit and the world is a place for expression of the truth of who we are. And of course, you can't do that expression unless you maintain your human life first. That's why Yeshua said the most important thing to human life is not love your neighbor, but have Rahma for your neighbor or the creator, that you keep this gateway open, maintain your human life, and now the world becomes a place of expression rather than a place of experience.
I love that. I love that because the expressor within us is doing the expressing, but what it looks like is us as the expression, and but it's the life energy flowing through us, and that
Exactly.
makes me honor the body, honor that artificial intelligence, honor that intellect within me, without making it my master, without making it my God.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the issue that Yeshua was expressing when he said, I'm in this world, but I'm not of it. Excuse me, it doesn't run me. I'm not here for its experiences to move me in a direction. I'm here to bring my expression and move the world in a direction.
And I and the Father are one.
Well, and all of life, if you listen to Einstein, if you think you're
Uh-huh.
separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. And most people live in an optical delusion of separateness.
Right.
And you can't possibly perceive the truth if you're living in that optical delusion. The more you collapse the perceptual constructs of carbon based memory, the more opportunity you have to move out of the delusions and into the truth of life and just bring creative expression to the world.
And now you've just given me a new quantum leap into why we must be gentle with ourselves. And I see it's like my ego is my little kid. And now I'm being given the honor of parenting my ego while I am surrendering to the parenting of my Holy Spirit. That's just words, and it probably doesn't mean anything to anyone else, or it might trigger,
I
oh,
got it.
yeah, it's just like, and that's why I love the image of the Trinity as the Father, Mother, and Son, or child, Christ child. Get it out of the sexual arena, the genital arena, but the the reigning vision of this Christ mind and the I'm trying to think the one song, the one harmony of what I call this sacred heart within me beating, the Holy Spirit, quote unquote. And then the child, who's supposed to be total joy, is dancing in the light and the sound, in dancing in the harmony and the music and the words to the song as part of the choir. That it just that makes me very very joyful.
Well, delighted to hear this joy flowing within you, joining you in it.
And at the same time, I wanted to report on my tremor, my arm tremor, which I have um, brought to an awareness when I feel like I'm being watched, i.e., judged, is one time. If I'm hypoglycemic, it tremors on me. I don't even want to eat with my left hand in that case. But this is what I found when I was lying in bed one morning recently. I was lying there meditating, doing my best to learn how to meditate, watching my breath, and my heart's always tremoring. Bless it. My hand, my it's a fine motor skill thing. I think it starts all the way through my arm, but it manifests with not being able to find motor skill. And it started shaking. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll just let it shake. But not but. And a lot of times when I am just meditating, I will find that my hand goes to a certain part of my body. Like it might go over the liver gallbladder area. It might go to that small lingual hernia I have. It might go to my thymus or my heart. And I had it I had it on my leg or my heart or my chest, I'm not sure. And all of a sudden, Michael, it was hitting me.
Well,
And
that's interesting.
I wasn't doing it. I was just letting it tremor. But I had my palm down, right? And it started hitting me. And I said, oh, hello, Cindy, sweetheart. Let's be gentle with ourselves. All of
Yay.
Burstein or Borstein.
Right.
And I just thought, and listening to Susan this morning, and I really do feel, and I hope she doesn't feel offended by this, that we're Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I just love it. We're two little peas in a pod. We're both seemingly, from my point of view, and it's all my point of view, she might have a totally different perspective. We're perfectionists in our own way. The only difference is that she took the route of I'm going to show them, and I took the right route of a learned helplessness. And I thought, oh my goodness, these are just dropping in my head like little pearls. I just wanted to share that.
Nice.
And I'm
Cool.
doing work. I'm um, um, I'm doing my work on the levels that little Cindy would love because I see the value of your worksheets and I love them and I use them when I need to. Uh, and the repetition of just reading through them, Michael, they're wonderful and they're helping. I know they're helping. And
Awesome.
locating what my goal is, I said, okay, it's not about them. What's my goal? And it all goes back to this little tiny girl that wanted to be loved, to have mommy be gentle with her, to have mommy let her have her own way, and to be right because it was pounded into me. Oh, and I swallowed it as a little tiny child because I didn't have the brain cells that if I were right, I would be safe. And if I
It
were
sound
perfect, I would be safe.
yeah. It sounds like the underlying goal that might deserve a worksheet or two is that Cindy would be honored.
Yes, thank you. Honor
That
comes
might
up
be.
a lot in my
Yeah.
in my worksheets and in my writings. Yeah.
It's a pretty common one. When you look at the original power person message that most children get, and it isn't, I don't think, rarely is it something that's done out of volition for the power person. It's just a repeating generational pattern. But the message is usually something along the lines of you're broken and I know better and therefore obey. And so when one accesses that level of thought and is able to apply forgiveness, then those messages weaken. And when they weaken, perception shifts, everything changes. So delighted. Well, I'm glad it's moving in the right direction for you, young lady.
It's interesting. I'm writing this down. It's interesting that you just said that about you're broken. I know better than you. You better obey. Um, because even as learned helplessness, the learned helpless state is the one that is going to use manipulation or is going to nag or because I'm saying the same thing, even as helpless, hopeless. I'm going to
Yeah.
say it's all about me. I need to get my needs met here. Let's take care of this. And I'm the worst driver of myself. And but of course, I'm projecting it out there all the time. And so I wanted to share that. That's very powerful. And the honor thing, the respect and honor. Respect and honor go with the lung. I have discerned for me go with my lung meridian. Integrity, honor, and respect. Worth, worth, respect or honor, and integrity are the three things that I have identified for me are directly connected to my lung energy, the energy system that we named in the West as the lung meridian.
So it might be time to go back to the worksheets from the codependence intensive that you did, the online intensive, and get the long form power person worksheet and start to work with that in regard to these insights around mom.
And you know what else is really, really fascinating about mom? Is I don't feel any resentment towards her. I feel compassion towards my mother in ways that I never felt before and in ways that link me to my own compassion.
Awesome. And I'd suggest that you do some worksheets around resentment,
Of course.
since that's a regulatory speech that surfaces. You remember um, Shakespeare's insight, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. If in fact, all was cool with mom, then the only language that would come from the unconscious about mom would be all is cool with her. When I speak about what isn't there, I'm speaking out of brain cells that are there and are calling for some work, would be my offering.
Uh, keep reminding me of this. This is a very precise point that I think has to have brain cells built around it, of course, to grok it.
We
Because
spend we spend days on this topic in the laws of living intensive, regulatory speech, and how it regulates not only our perception and our literal cellular chemistry and our creative process, but impacts everything in our world. And speech, to be able to just observe your own speech and recognize that if I'm using a word that has a particular meaning, I'm using that because that particular meaning is in my mind. And if I were in a space of I'm I'm totally and completely clean and clear with mom and honor her 100%. If that were your natural language, then awesome. But the fact that what comes in is there's no resentment says, okay, so there's still some work to do around resentment. So
oh,
we'll
I
hold
think
the
you're
space.
on it. I think you're on it, Michael, because um, I'm aware that there are certain things I need to deal with, certain issues I need to deal with. That's probably still linked to Mama, and it's a matter of, like you were saying, working on each one of them because I still project them, Michael.
You know. So I grabbed that long form worksheet, the power person worksheet, and I do some work around that with mom.
No, I don't have your latest one. I think I've got one with 14 issues on it, but that's it.
Yeah. If you look in the email that you got from Jeannie for the intensive, there are links to all of the worksheets, and that 14-page codependence power person worksheet would be in that list.
Oh, the updated version?
Yeah.
Because when I
And
have
if you're having trouble finding it, just drop me a text and I'll make sure to get one to you.
thank you, sir.
All
And
right.
about
Honored and
vaccine,
delighted.
vaccines, if I can just say one quick thing that I found out for myself. I'm basically massively immunocompromised, which now is much less than it was when I was younger, and I'm very grateful. So I have chosen to be unvaccinated. And the one thing, one of the reasons, profound reasons, is because of my perception and the information I've received that because of all the items in vaccines, they suppress the immune system, and I can't afford it. But as to whether one should get vaccinated or not, and I just share this with Susan, is for me a totally individual choice. And I don't have to defend myself about my choice. And I'm not going to attack someone else for their choice by insisting that they listen to my viewpoint. But
So listen
what
to
I'm
the speech.
going to do,
Listen to the speech.
yes,
Listen to
I
your
will.
words that are flying up, and they're
Okay.
about attack
I,
and
well,
defense.
I'm still working on preaching, so that's where I'm coming from. But thank you, I will.
All right.
Now,
Awesome.
the heart issue. It's just heart to heart. What am I? How am I going to relate to this person who has this position that is different than mine, that is clearly not cut and dried in either side? Am I going to extend love that I am to them, or am I going to withdraw and withhold and exclude them from my heart? I'm not going to do that anymore. But I do. I'm not going to do that. I choose
Good
to
catch. Good
treat
catch. You're
them
catching your speech. That's
right,
awesome.
right. And I'm going to choose to love them because that's the only power, the only true, authentic power in the universe and
That's
beyond.
it.
And that's
I'm
my
with you 100%.
thank you, sir.
All right. You have a blessed one. Lots of love. Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye bye. Speech is a powerful, powerful um, doorway, gateway into the mind. And so being aware of that, we tend to ignore our speech. And so it's just a tool just to be aware of, in the area or in the laws of living, we refer to it as regulatory speech. And that regulatory speech is the speech that represents the energy patterns that are running all aspects of our lives. And when my speech informs me that I'm engaged in something that is of distortion, that is of hostility or fear, it's just an indicator of my next piece of work. So awesome. Thank you for that conversation, Linda. And welcome everybody. Glad you're here. Sally, Melanie. And so any other thoughts? Push that call button or drop a note in the comments. Otherwise, we're going to move back into this conversation about codependence. And Miss Carrie, how are you, young lady?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm rocking, doing well.
Well, I'll tell you, I was doing a bunch of worksheets this morning and I was so amazed at how they all tie into each other. One thing goes, when I do one, it's like, yes, and I did several. I laid out several in the first place because I wanted to do them, but it's amazing how intertwined they all were, how
Yes.
stacked my corrupt data is, I guess I'd call it, right?
Yeah, well, to me, when you realize that that nothing in the actuality looks anything like what our brain presents to us as a picture. I'm sitting in the room, I'm looking, I see what I call a fan, I see a TV set, I see a phone, I see a light. In order for my brain to generate that deeply detailed picture, there's a whole lot of underlying content that goes into producing that detailed hologram.
Right.
And in order to get any particular pain perceptual construct to disappear, I may have to go into, 2, 10, 20, 50, 100 aspects of the underlying dynamic in order to clear out what it is that my mind is able to turn into a picture of, somebody else with the problem that's going on inside of me. So
Right.
yeah, it is amazing how it all ties together, and that's one of the reasons why that number one pseudo solution of the non-being mind, if I can just figure this out, has to be thrown away. It's just
Yes.
have to get rid of it because there's no figuring out all of those dynamics. But at any moment, you can forgive it. You can apply that tool, and bingo, drop, collapse it.
Right. Here in Mexico, when they build a house, at least in the area we're in over here, um, they build with bricks. And so it's one brick on top of another brick on top of another brick. And then they put concrete over the whole thing to make it look like a nice stucco. And
Right?
I was thinking how my thought patterns are kind of like that. One layered
Yeah.
on top of another, and then they have a nice little frosting over the top that makes them look good. But maybe they're yeah, those stored pieces of data. And that uh, last night I was reading a couple of your longer documents, and just that description again of perception, which is so amazing. That my I actually ended up having a very nice chat this morning with Mary Lou Palmer Cordova, who
Oh,
was
cool.
my roommate 10 years ago at Heartland.
Right.
And she told me some of her story, some of her backstory, which I didn't really remember from back then. But she's a Unity minister, and so she's filling in different places where they need it. But she really um, she loves this work. She speaks very beautifully of it, and we were discussing that idea of how our perception really is what paints the world around us, and just it's a whole nother level of comprehending our creatorship, so to speak. But if we're creating from positive data, or data based in love, or data based in our pain and our suffering and our damage.
Right.
So anyway, I know you said you were going to go on with the codependence to interdependence conversation, so I didn't want to interrupt that, but I just wanted to say hi and say we're digging in
Cool.
deeper, and it's really awesome.
What is the main insight that you're gathering from this particular group of worksheets that you're doing? Is that appropriate to share?
Um, well, pretty much, really. I mean, just the level of getting that whatever I'm seeing outside is inside of me, and it's from patterns that I've had in my life or had to address in my life, and just being able to begin. I mean, I've been doing these worksheets for years, not always, not consistently, but off and on for years. And
Right. You disappeared. I'm still seeing you in the queue, but your voice is cut out. I'm not sure what's happened. Oh, I've just lost your voice altogether, Carrie. Maybe try doing the call button again. Okay, let's try again.
all right. So just for me, it's just seeing at a whole new level. Even though I've done many years of worksheets, the the depth at which I'm getting it now is just, I have more brain cells, I guess, to understand it, and just to see that everything I think I see in the outside world is something that I'm carrying around on the inside, either from an experience, um, a power person situation, of course, but other perceptions too, and that they're all just, oh, that is from within me. And I think that's the thread that I see in between everything is, oh yeah, I remember when I did this. Oh yeah, I remember when I did this. And it just very, very revealing. And it also lightens the load as I address it and I do the worksheet on that item. I begin feeling myself breathing easier and the load kind of moving, um, dissolving some of it, which is really nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm with you 2000%.
I sent yesterday's show out to about 10 people last night because Jeannie sent me the link, which was great. And I just keep, you know, I'd like to see having the ability to share this concept with people on a broader scale. So that's in my mind and heart, and just living it, of course, is number one. But finding ways to share it as people are looking for answers, and um, yeah, thinking of doing it with some, I don't know, simple little videos. Uh, but it's just really, really important key material, as I keep saying, of course.
Every mind, heart, and being on the planet.
That's right.
That's the objective for sure.
Yep.
Appreciate you being on the team.
Yep. Well, thanks. And we'll continue listening here to whatever you have to say today.
All right. Have a blessed one. Lots of love.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye. It looks like we lost Peter. I was hoping he'd hit the call button, but anyway, I guess he's not going to do that today. So, well, let's go back and take a look at another aspect, or the continuing look at this power person dynamic. And one of the topics, Carrie, that you just spoke about that's so important is this idea of perception. And if anybody hasn't watched it, you might jump on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Michael Ryce and find the video link to What is the World? It's about a 32-minute video. And I think it's probably one of the most important and one of the most misunderstood lessons in A Course in Miracles. And it points out that there is a false world that most everybody lives in. And the mind plays this game so skillfully that people point out there and go, yeah, that world out there isn't real. And it says, that world out there you made. But actually, when the Course talks about the world you made, it's talking about the world of perception. It's not talking about the actuality. But that literally, this amazing device we've been given called a mind, and it really, we call it the mind, but that's all part of the illusion. That's all part of the false world. And that lesson points it out just so simply, and it's oftentimes hard for people to grasp how simple it is. The world is false perception. The world that we're aiming forgiveness at is not somebody out there who's the problem in your life. The world we're working to aim forgiveness at is the one between your ears, the world of false perception. In that particular lesson, the Course says, it is born of error and it has not left its source. It will remain no longer as the thought that gave it birth is cherished. Now, if your mind comes up with some sort of an hostility or fear-based construct, and your mind tells you it's about something, it does that because there is the mind energy held inside that's reflecting as that world of false perception. This is the only place the Course is aiming forgiveness. This is the only place to activate forgiveness, is to recognize that if I have a construct in my mind that reflects as some form of pain or trauma, it's because I have the mind energy of that pain or trauma within me. And if I can locate where I'm feeling in my physiology, I can more easily locate my breath in that part of my physiology. I can more easily recognize that's where the energy's stored. I can soften, I can open, I can let go of resistance in physiology and let that go. And the reason the power person dynamic is so important is because whenever a thought disorder that came from a power person is fed to us under stress, the mind will take that denied and dissociated thought disorder and turn it into a picture. And that picture, if I'm focused out there in the world, if I have a goal for somebody out there and I'm focused on them, then what I want to do is I want to activate forgiveness so that I can collapse the world of false perception, the construct that my problem is caused by someone out there, and drop into the place in me that holds that energy, deliver that energy, bring that energy forward in the active presence of love in order to allow dissolution. Because whenever a power person thought disorder is fed to you under stress, the mind will really believe that that thought is true about whoever it's making its current construct. The person who's saying they're the one who makes me mad or sad or afraid or whatever. And therefore we believe that it's true about someone else rather than ourselves. So this whole false world will remain no longer as long as you have a use for the game of blame and having somebody else be the problem in your life, then that world is going to remain with you. It will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. And again, when we speak that power person thought disorder, we speak it with what appears to be our own voice, but ultimately it's really the power person's voice that's bringing that particular energy forward. And if I pay attention to my words flap, my thoughts remain below, I can use that as a mechanism for accessing the hidden parts of my own mind. And so the mind believes this lie because we're tricked into seeing the thought disorder turned into a picture of somebody else. I mean, there it is. I see it. There it is, right there in my mind. I can see it. Therefore, it must be about them. If they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? It's one of the main questions on the worksheet. If they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? Obviously, if they're the one with the problem, they'd be the one with the pain. If I think they're the problem and I'm in pain, maybe I have something I'm hiding from myself. How do we hide those things from ourselves? Denial. What is denial? Whenever I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, then I ascribe cause to something out there when the cause of what's moving in me is what's moving in me. So this whole dynamic is an unconscious effort to resolve the lie that your power person told you about yourself, to prove that it's not true about you, but it's true about somebody else. And the whole objective is to get to a strong enough place of active present love within you, within yourself, that you can access directly that power person message and bring it to the breath and the presence of love for dissolution. But recognize that the lie, the power person message that was given, that's reflecting in perception, especially when one's under stress, is just the way the mind is manipulating that particular information, that particular thought. And so when you speak that thought disorder about someone else, then the lie that the power person's mind brought and passed on to you, perception will continue to try to convince you that this is true. So under stress, the message that one hated, but incorporated into the perception of oneself, if unconsciously we speak that about someone else, and they made me mad, they made me sad, if you can just step back in that moment and take a breath and be the observer of your own hostility or fear-based states, then you get the opportunity to recognize that whatever was told to you is not true about you, and to breathe the presence of love into that unconscious energy at whatever depth it's held within your structure is to dissolve it. That's the act of forgiveness. The dissolution of that energy is forgiveness. And it's only when the mind is fueled and connected to love that truth can start to show up. Or I shouldn't have to be careful with words here. I will never experience the actuality through my perceptual mind. I can experience information that's accurate from the actuality, but the actuality itself is not going to come to experience through my mind. That's just trying to get the mind to do something that it can't do. So when I'm willing to let go of all inferior energy, all hostility and fear-based content, when I resolve those things, then truth becomes clear. There's no longer an overlay. There's no longer an interference pattern that inhibits accurate information. And that work, it's like going into the gym and exercising. As you do your work, you strengthen the faculties with which you walk directly into the actuality and have an actual experience. Now, that's what people call intuition functioning. You'll get you'll be fed whole compendiums of information. And you go, where did that come from? The actuality is always there. And if the breath is moving, remember, Rukuta Kucha is the breath in Aramaic. And by definition, it's she who one undoes the effects of errors and teaches us the truth, gives us access to the actuality and whatever the actuality is presenting to us, offering to us. And there isn't room for it to come into experience while hostility or fear is moving. And as it always amazes me, all the years I've been doing worksheets with people, and the moment, if people are really paying attention, the moment when they've got the goal that is really driving their perception at the moment, they cancel it and take a breath, it always amazes me what kind of memories, what kind of circumstances come to the surface. And we will tend to play out the power person dynamic. It's like the root of the whole "why is this happening to me again" game. There's the passive power person dynamic. Remember, there was a woman who was always seeing herself as a failure, and where she was able to dump the failure dynamic in her life was when she went back to being a young girl, about 13 years of age, and the family was in an automobile accident. The father died instantly, and the child of 13 is trying to save her mother, who ended up dying. And out of that experience, she took on this failure message that no matter what, I'm going to be a failure. And that's an example of the kind of story that one tells themselves to prove that the power person dynamic is true for them. So a question you can ask yourself is, what story did I tell myself to convince me that my power person's story about me was true, that my power person's lie was true? So if, let's say, for instance, something that a lot of people are addicted to is being in control. And so if the child in relationship to the power person has to stay in control in order to survive, then under stress, the mind is always going to guide them into that control. And yet being in control or appearing to be in control out of hostility or fear just means more self-inflicted wounds. And in that dynamic, you know, even the best support will be treated as someone that needs to be controlled. So a good, mind shifter in regard to this, and remember the idea of a mind shifter is that you take a piece of paper and you draw a line down the middle of the page, write the mind shifter on the left hand side, and then let your mind just free associate on whatever comes up in response to it. So a mind shifter, like, it's safe and healing for me to question my power person. It's safe and healing, and I always received approval from my power person when I questioned him or her. Especially if you came from a family system where you were never allowed to ask questions, you were shut down. That mind shifter, it's safe and healing, and I always received approval from my power person when I questioned him or her. Breathe, write, rewrite that, and see what it surfaces. And then you get another level of insight into the worksheet, the forgiveness processes that need to be utilized in order to free yourself from that underlying dynamic. For someone in that situation, it's like the law of the power person is, if I can't control you, then you'll never gain my approval. I'll always find something wrong. And to recognize that attacking the object of attention in a given moment, the person you're focused on today, is not going to result in you achieving your unconscious goal of changing the power person's behavior or to do vengeance to get back at the power person. It's just not going to work. The forgiveness process will allow one to delete those energetic patterns rather than play them out. So if your power person was always giving you messages like you're wrong, you're bad, you're stupid, you're incompetent, if only you would, messages like you don't deserve the space you take up, messages like it's your fault that I'm in pain. These are all the kinds of messages that tend to be passed on from generation to generation. And if you pass that message on to the person you're in relationship with, as though it's true about them, then you just handed the power person dynamic into every aspect of your life. And to recognize that the human mind is an evidential device, and once I give it a conclusion, my mind will cherry pick evidence that's needed to prove the conclusion's true. So, people will fabricate, according to the power person message received, facts that justify conclusions that are relevant to actual circumstances in the moment, but match what's been triggered in the power person message. And that's the place to allow yourself to soften, breathe, and create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings.